Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Alton Board of Selectmen meeting for March 21st, 2022. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, have two things I'd like to amend the agenda with. One, moving the reorganization of the board after non-public session. And second, to add to new business number 11, payroll and contract.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to call subject to order. This meeting was not duly posted at the town hall last Friday. It wasn't posted, I think, until this morning at 8:30 outside the town hall. It was not posted in the post office, was not posted at the library, nor was it posted on the website this morning till 8:30. So at this time, I don't believe this is a legal meeting. Even though it does stay downstairs, the Board of Selectmen meet on the 1st and 3rd. But our policy was the agenda has to be the meeting has to be posted 24 hours in advance. Even if it was posted on Friday afternoon, that is not 24-hour notice because the weekends are not considered. So I believe tonight's meeting, if we go forward with this meeting, it's a legal meeting. I believe the meeting should be canceled this time, moved to either Wednesday night, because it's too late to do Tuesday night. We'll wait till next week.
I think we have a legal opinion on that.
Yes.
Yes. So I've already talked to the chairman as well since the phone call is gone. I did post Thursday afternoon, was physically posted on Thursday afternoon at the library and the post office.
And why couldn't we see it this morning?
I sent the public works director was on his way out of the town hall. So after I got the information, I sent him down to check the board and he sent me a photograph of it posted on there.
I was told by the chairman this morning it was not there, sir.
And there was a lot of stuff. I did some follow up because it was brought to my attention this morning. The other thing is it was posted on the website. I had the auditor. So there was a edit date when the agenda went on this morning, but the meeting's been posted since March 1st on the website. So we have the website, we have the library, we have the post office. And then we have the backup or the redundancies, which are the postings in the lobby downstairs and outside and at the post office that say that the Board of Selectmen meets the 1st and 3rd Monday at 6 p.m. at Town Hall.
That's true.
Every
That's
month.
not full transparency when you go by that, though. That's not full transparency because we could call just a meeting off on the 3rd. Nobody would ever know it. I'm just saying this morning, the chairman right now stated this morning he did not see it there.
And I did not.
And it was not on the website. It wasn't on the website till he questioned it at 8:30.
The agenda
So
wasn't.
how did he not see it if it was supposed to be on the website?
Well,
I did not see the agenda on any of the postings, but now that you mentioned the other one that said the first Monday of the month and the 3rd Monday of the month, I did see a small piece of paper that said that. That's all I did see at the time of all 3 locations.
That's bad transparency on this board.
But as
I'll make the board look.
as far as 918 goes in the legality of the meeting, that's more of a backup and a redundancy. But like I said, I had the IT administrator go on and pull the actual screenshot out of when those events were added into the calendar on the website. And it's been up, this particular meeting has been up since March 1st.
Well, it's just funny that the chairman couldn't have found it this morning on our website, and he's used the website enough. I'm just saying, we're gonna do a job. Let's do it right. Let's not hide behind the first and the third little piece of paper. That's just poor workmanship.
And what the chairman, just to clarify, what he was looking at, and we had this conversation, was the agenda. The agenda is not part of the legal posting. It's only the meeting posting.
But sir, as part of the job as being a selectman for 17 years, it always has been. Nobody's ever used that excuse. That's an excuse, not a reason,
Well,
in my opinion.
I was always under the impression that the agenda was always with.
that the agenda is always amended.
Well, I got an idea. We work for
I
these
did.
people right here. Let's ask them if they want to have a meeting. Because we work for them. There's people sitting right here that apparently came that wanted to have a meeting. It's not, obviously it's posted where it's, maybe it was forgotten in one spot, but do you folks still want to have a meeting? All right. Isn't that, don't we work for them?
Hey, Mr. Mitchell, I think I had a right to state my opinion.
No, I
The way
agree that.
The way I feel the meeting should be posted by legal terms. I believe the way it was done was not in good transparency, and that's the way it seems, the way some of our meetings are going lately.
And I just brought it up merely because this morning at 8 o'clock, I didn't see it posted downstairs, and that's all.
No, and I don't
And
have an
I
issue.
wanted clarification, and we now have that clarification, so we'll move on.
I believe there's a motion on the floor. I've heard enough of this.
Yes, I have a motion.
Motion on the floor.
Yes. And I, want me to read it again? The motion on the floor was to amend the agenda for moving the reorganization of the board till after non-public session, because there's a lot here to do tonight, and so we could do that at the end. And the other one was on new business, number 11, to add payroll and contract.
Payroll contracts.
Yes. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
What's the discussion? Problem with doing this now, like it is on the agenda?
Doing the reorganization? Oh, there's no problem. It just takes us a little while to do the reorganization, and thought it would be best to do it towards the end instead of doing it first. That's all. So we could move on with business.
Don't have a problem with
Do we have a second?
I give you a second.
Give me a
Yeah, he's
second.
got it.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, thank you. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of it is on the back of each agenda posted this meeting room and on our website. There will be rabies clinic for dogs and cats at the Alton Central Fire Station, 65 Frank C. Gilman Highway, Route 140, on Saturday, April 9th, 2022, from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. The cost of per shot will be $20. Microchip is $40. Dog licenses available for Alton residents only. Public input, 3 minutes on agenda items only.
Lauren Cobb. So am I understanding that you're going to have non-public session and then you're going to come back out and you're going to do the
Reorganization.
reorganization? So if non-public session lasts a half an hour, we're going to have to wait around here for you people then to come back in here and reorganize?
Well, that was a thought, and I didn't think it was gonna
I've never
last.
seen that done before. Never seen this, that you, that's the first business, it's always been done.
Just thought that the evening was long and that there would be a lot to go over, that it would take some time to go over the reorganization.
Well, if the meeting's gonna last 3 hours, what difference does it matter whether you do it at the beginning or the end? Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll go right to Conservation Commission, Longstack. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we have the appointments to
Yep,
talk about.
I'm sorry, appointments.
So these two appointments, we have requests from Mark Sargent for Hopewell Road, the acceptance of Hopewell Road, and Thomas Barney for Laura Lane. We need to discuss this, whether the board wants to hold a public hearing and proceed with possibly accepting these as town roads.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question I had reading through all the paperwork and legalities of it. Has this gone before one of our legal counsels to have it reviewed? I really couldn't make heads or tails of that.
As to whether or not it had been reviewed yet, the paperwork.
Yes, sir.
And no, I haven't done it personally at this point. These were under discussion for quite a long time at this point. I directed the last individual who called on it to make sure that he had a pre-conversation with the Public Works Director to make sure that there weren't any further concerns, because I know in particular, I believe it was Hopewell had come to the board and there was initially some repairs that were required from the board to go back and do some crack sealing and some other items. And they went back and remedied those items, but I directed them to the Public Works Director to have a meeting and speak about whether or not those were met to his satisfactions, because it was under the old road agent.
Normally, before we have a road hearing, the board would usually have town council review all documents, sign off on all documents before we'd schedule a hearing. As far as Laura Lane, on the next one, that's the first that's come up since I've been here. And Hopewell Road, yes, some things had to be done, but legal counsel never signed off. And I would suggest to the board, before they schedule a road acceptance hearing, that the legal counsel signs off on these, make sure all documents are correct.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend to the board.
So a lot of these are recorded already.
They were recorded, but I don't believe I've ever saw, and I believe at that time, it would have been Attorney James Sessler, representing the town, would have signed off with a letter to us stating all documents and everything are in order.
Yes.
Yeah, most of the documents that I'm seeing are recorded, but I understand what you're saying with that. But usually in my experience is that most of this stuff that is approved through the planning process and the documents and the easements are as part of the planning process, the planner requires, or the planning board, excuse me, requires that all those documents go through legal counsel before being recorded.
But again, sir, planning board and board of selectmen are two different boards. They review it from the planning statutes and issues. We review it from the RSAs. Like I said, I've never sat on a road acceptance or a public hearing that our legal counsel has not reviewed and signed off on.
Any other comments?
No, sir, that's all I have.
What's the wish of the board?
I'd at least like to hear from the Public Works Director and see what he thinks about it, at least. To see if he's looked into them.
Scott?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Since I've come on board last April, I have visited along with Mr. Roberts, the Hopewell Road site. He did go over what items he had laid out for that site. Since then, I've had very little communications, only with the previous town administrator, inquiring about status and those types of things, and also from a resident down there that was trying to move the process along. Haven't been back for any follow-up inspections, nor have I been requested to do so. Not familiar if in fact the town engineer has done any of those inspections as well, or was involved. I have been involved in Laura Lane, and since I've been here, I've been out there at least a couple site inspections along with the town engineer and the town planner, and also with the developer, and gone over that. Outlined the repairs. Those repairs were done with the exception of the final asphalt treatment that we agreed to, which was a asphalt rubber chip seal to be done to that roadway before it could be accepted on that. And I believe there is some information that may have come up on that one from the planning board that would have indicated or outlined I believe an escrow that was, or funds that were going to be set aside in order to ensure that
Yes.
to the board. That's my recollection. I don't remember the exact amounts, but I do know that that was that process with that on that side of it.
So in your opinion, when this rubber chip seal is laid down, is the road up to standard to be accepted?
The Laura Lane would be all set. I mean, the road actually was constructed about, I think, 15 years ago. Subdivision is completely, built out at this point. The road had actually been, if the process had happened 15 years ago, I'm guessing it would have been accepted back then without any changes or improvements to it, because it had already been paved and then had been topped as well. And then over the 15 years, it had shown some degradation in a couple areas where there was some culverts and things that had crossed and had cracked. And so we did have those repaired. They actually took them right out and repaired them and then repaved them back in, crack sealed the entire area as well. So.
In your general opinion on Hopewell?
To be honest with you, I haven't been to Hopewell again. I haven't even been in there this winter or this spring. So, certainly I would recommend giving it another look. I'd also like to review the paperwork as well. That way, as far as the deeds go, I do recall Mr. Roberts indicating, there's a lot of, there's walls there, there's trees there, those types of things as to looking at the legal write-up on that, because, that can be problematic in that if a wall, who owns the wall, where's the boundaries, understanding where that is. These were planted, as I would call them, ornamental type trees or streetscape type of trees that were put up. I believe there are a lot of them were maples that were put in there, and are those within the town's right of way? Now, I would say, based on a 50-foot right of way, they're, things are probably pretty close to that, but I haven't actually gone out and pulled the measurements myself. I'm just basing that based upon when Mr. Roberts kind of gave me the overview back in last April. I was in there one other time, took a ride in there, and I don't know if the engineer prepared a report at all. I don't recall. He may have been out there in between at the request of the town planner in preparation for this, because they do a lot of that type of discussion.
Don't see
Would
anything.
that be KV Partners?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
I'm
some-
guessing it'd either be KV Partners or it may be Tyne and Bond. They're the other consulting engineering firm that the planning board utilizes as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I think whoever the public works director just stated, he hasn't had a chance to go back out to Hopewell Road,
that's correct.
and he has been up on Laura Lane. I still say at this point, we should put this on hold until we get the reports back from him on everything, and all department heads, fire chief, police chief. They make sure everything's in accordance with should, and that's normally the procedure we follow. The Board of Selectmen does. We don't go just by what the planning board says.
Mhm.
Planning board normally has to sign off, send us down a letter, and normally all department heads do. And I would suggest wholeheartedly that the Board of Selectmen continue those policies, so it does not get us into litigation.
And if I can just add, my understanding from seeing these two items on the agenda were that these were holdover items that had been passed up through from the planning board up through to the Board of Selectmen to move it to the next level. all the levels in which Selectman Wentworth mentioned. I don't know that it was the town administrators, and certainly wasn't mine. I don't believe he and I haven't collaborated about moving this to any type of a road acceptance hearing, public hearing of any sort. It was basically to take it off the shelf and reinstitute it within the system. That was my understanding. So I don't think anybody has failed the system as of yet, even though it may be insinuated. I don't believe that that has occurred yet. I believe it's now been taken off the shelf because it was with the prior administration and had not come off the shelf, nor had been activated or been activated by the planning board. That's all.
No, well, the only thing I'm saying is normally the people that live on the road petition the Board of Selectmen, the selectmen, nor did the planning board go out to accept the road. Normally it's done by the neighbors or the abutters on the road. They petition the town. That's the way the RSA states. And that has not, I have not seen one of those yet, sitting here for the last 6 years. Laura Lane, the neighbors there just came to me at my store one day and asked me all about it. How could we get to accept it after the last ice storm? Because it was a mess. And I said, normally there's a petition process. Get on, you get a petition, all the butters come in. Deed work has to be done. Middle of the road has to be defined to the ditch lines where the property lines will be and boundary lines will be. So they did get to work on that I know of. And this is the first I've seen of it here, but normally we do not schedule a public hearing, a road acceptance until all department heads have signed off.
Yeah, that would be my understanding is.
My understanding is the planning board, they said that the stipulations and the conditions, which are all the documents, which are the easements, that's in here. They've already been recorded. So, and I understand whatever the will of the board is the will of the board, but I want everyone to understand that, you know, those documents have been approved and recorded already at this point as part of the condition. If they meet their conditions, which is what the planning board is stating, that the conditions have been met, and that's why it was pushed up. There are residents here tonight, and this request came to me through one of the agents of one of the residents. Mark Sargent for Hopewell, which was the agent for the Bears, and Laura Lane came in through Tom Varney, which is one of the agents, I believe, for one of the residents here in the audience right now. So I'm just clarifying for the board with some of the comments and the questions are being made, but I have absolutely no problem with however the board wants to proceed. I'll make sure that it happens.
Well, when this was reviewed before by the planning board, this was back in August of 2020. And that's when the original paperwork was done. So it's been a
while. That's
right.
why
I don't think it would hurt to go through all the department heads. Thank you. To go through all the department heads and make sure everybody's in compliance.
Yeah, that's fine.
And how's this, the consensus of the rest of the board?
How about the issue brought up about the attorneys? Is that time for this now too, or?
I don't think it's a bad idea to have the attorney review it. As well as have if we have the time to have the department heads to review it.
Is that a policy?
Well, it has been in the past, just for an attorney to sign off.
Trying to remember the road last spring, we did a public hearing on, town attorney signed off before we went ahead and scheduled the public hearing.
Well, that could be true, but that doesn't mean it's our policy.
It's always been the board's policy since I've been a selectman, Mr. Holt.
Well, I'm just saying, that's the question I asked.
I believe it is.
A policy.
But we can look into
it wasn't. I asked the question.
Because that's how the town's gotten themselves in trouble before, especially up in West Alton on a couple of those roads up there. Went by what the planning board said. We ended up having to take over roads that did not meet minimum road standards. It's right on the town line in Alton, Guilford on Route 11.
Any other comments? Mark?
No, I don't. I mean, the Laurel Lane, I don't have a problem with. Hopewell, obviously, nobody's looked at it, so that would be something that we look at. But if general consensus is we get somebody, you let the attorney look at it, I got no issue with that. But it's, I mean, it seems like it's moving the right direction, so.
I mean, just to finalize.
We need to stop, yeah, that's fine.
To finalize the necessary steps, I think
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing you want to put in there, on Hopewell Road, they're asking for part of a class 6 road to be opened back up to a class 5 road. So we should ask the Public Works Director what's going to entail the opening that back up to a class 5 road. If there's any work or construction that's going to be done, the cost that's involved in it.
That would also,
When his report comes back. on
Right.
Hopewell Road, that should happen.
that should be all part of the report.
Yes.
My only other question to this would be, are we gonna need more manpower to man these roads? Because we're adding more roads to the plate that they have?
That's a good question.
Just a thought for down the road, I guess.
Was the general consensus to have the attorney review it and have the rest of the department heads review everything and take a better look and to be able to sign off on having a
I'm fine with
hearing?
that.
I'm fine with that, sir.
Fine.
Thank you. Okay, new business, Conservation Commission, Longstack, precipitous support.
Evening, gentlemen. Thank you.
State your name, please.
Gene Young, Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
What we're coming for is to ask your approval to withdraw $32,500 from our conservation fund to support the acquisition of a piece of property up near Knights Pond. In your packets, I believe you have tax maps and some other information showing the parcel. And the reason that we are supporting this, this is a parcel that abuts land that is already conserved around Knights Pond. And it happens to have a cliff that is very attractive to rock climbers. Been used informally for many years. In the sheet that I gave you, it mentions that it's 170 feet tall and climbers have established 77 routes on it, varying from pretty easy to pretty technical climbs. The entity that wants to purchase the property, their proposal and their interest is in the climbing. And what they want to do is purchase the property and then give it to Lakes Region Conservation Lakes Region Conservation with the understanding that the precipices will be open to the public for climbing. So their mode of action is to do this sort of thing. They'll acquire property, they can move fairly quickly to do so. Make sure that it's available for public, and then they turn it over to an established conservation organization for management. And the Conservation Commission feels that this is certainly an asset, both in addition to already conserved land up there. It puts us within one piece of property of connecting that conserved land to a large amount of conserved land in Alton. And we've been learning over the years that when we can kind of bring our conservation lands together into larger tracts, it is more beneficial to those values for which we conserve land, which is water, wildlife, recreation, and so on. $32,500 is approximately 10% of the purchase price.
This is currently maintained by the state of New Hampshire.
The land is currently in private ownership.
It is in private ownership.
Does it attract mountain climbing now?
It does.
It does.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It's not a well-known, it's just a little quieter. And if this happens, of course, then it probably would become more widely known. Might bring a few more people into town for recreational purposes. So if they are able to consummate an agreement with the landowner, then at some point we would contribute our $32,500, and in exchange, we would also acquire an executory interest in the property.
And how many acres was this?
I'm not sure if I have that. I think I would know that right off the top of my head.
220 acres? Is that correct?
That sounds correct. Yes, it's fairly large property.
No, I think that's the,
No,
That's
220.
the area. That's the whole area. The 270 conservation easement.
no, I think.
No,
that's-
sir, it's a little less than 100 acres.
Loss preservation.
That's a different one.
Yep.
It's somewhat less than 100.
Any other questions?
So who would somebody be running this, developing it?
There's really no development to it. It's, it's
It's
cliff. It's there.
Okay.
There's a trail to it at this time. It's a relatively informal trail. And the current landowner has always allowed people to go in there. But it is on the market, and this access fund, the group that has approached us, they are an organization of climbers. And they've known of this place for a long time, came on the market. This is the thing that they do, is when they can, they'll acquire a property, make sure that it stays open to the public, and then pass it on to a conservation organization for ongoing management.
So you're looking for acceptance to receive.
We have a conservation fund.
Right.
Has a little over $400,000 in it.
Mhm.
We want to take 32,500 of that and use it, donate it essentially towards the purchase of this property so that it will be conserved.
Mhm.
And in exchange for that, we're going to get an executory interest in the property, which means that if Lakes Region Conservation Trust fails to do what they're supposed to do to protect it, we can step in and protect it. It gives us legal rights to the property.
Uh-huh.
But if everything goes the way it's supposed to, Lakes Region Conservation Trust will manage the property. And their typical form of managing it is to maintain a trail and check the boundaries once a year. And have it open to the public for climbing, for hunting. And for whatever other conservation values, for timber, for wildlife, all those things.
So there's no maintenance on part of the Conservation Commission to do anything there at all?
We would have, unless Lakes Region essentially folded, we would never have anything to do with the piece of property, which is just the way we like it.
Other than investing,
Other than
investing the monies.
and encouraging.
Have you had any legal counsel look at that?
We've done this before. We've not had legal counsel look at this particular thing, but we've done this sort of thing before. The most recent one was a few years ago when the town put a little over $300,000 in acquiring 2 parcels over by Mount Major. Same arrangements.
I see.
So Gene, I guess the only question I have sitting here, the headline you gave us on the paper says Access Fund Acquisition Loan Committee, PO Box 17010, Boulder, Colorado, reference Longstack prepiece. Their Access Fund Acquisition Loan Committee. I'm writing on behalf of the Alton Conservation Commission. I follow the list all the way down, the RSAs, but nobody has signed this. I see nothing. I just say somebody's writing on behalf of the Alton Conservation Commission. I don't know who Acquisition Loan Committee is, for one. It's the first time I've seen their name mentioned. And if they were so interested in this piece, why didn't we receive a letter from them for us to review? Or is that not how it worked? Did the Conservation Commission contact them to go and try to buy this and then donate it to Lakes Region Forest Society?
Well,
See, I'm not seeing the other two players here. I'm just seeing a letter from Alton Conservation Commission with no signatures. That's all.
yes, sir, and that was my signature on that.
I don't have it in front of me though.
No, I didn't. I actually only copied the first page because what I really wanted to give you out of this was the description of the property. And I apologize for not having the follow-up. This project came up pretty suddenly and about, I think first contact was in December. One of the members of this fund lives up in Conway. And he had begun negotiations with the owner of the property. And he came to us looking for financial support as well as support such as this letter that he could take to the acquisition committee to say the local people are in favor of this.
Okay.
And frankly, we feel that it's a very good idea and we are in favor of it. The access fund is the, I keep calling it an entity, an organization that acquires properties that have climbing potential. And this is their means of doing so. So we support it. If it comes to pass and there is a purchase at the appropriate time, we would present the funds. Before any of that kind of thing happens, all the paperwork, everything else goes through our legal counsel.
What kind of insurances are there in place for this, for injury or?
It would be the same insurances that there would occur on any other property, I would think, which people are pretty much on their own. You know, it's just like somebody hiking on the town forest. It's,
Oh, major.
yeah, anything like that.
Okay. Gentlemen?
Yeah, I just think that, you know, this all sounds good. I think it's going to generate a lot of people.
Oh, I think it's a good idea. I'm just wondering whether or not we need to look into it a little bit further, with the information that you, in conjunction with what you've given us.
So right now, you're basically asking us to support to send this letter forward. You're not asking for any money right now.
No, because even if you were to approve this thing tonight, we can't even withdraw the money till we have our own public hearing, for one thing.
Okay.
And the other thing is that
That's what I was going to ask.
they've still got to come up with a purchase and sales agreement with the landowner. They've got to make sure they've got all their money in a row. In addition to what we contribute, it's got to go through our legal. You know, those are the steps that have to be taken and certainly will be taken.
So you're just basically looking for our support for this letter. And that's
For the withdrawal of the 32.5.
32,500.
But I thought you just said there was be no money withdrawal until all paperwork and everything be done. So why do we need to get that approval now?
To make it worthwhile for us to move ahead?
But you're not going to withdraw $32,000.
Not until it comes time to purchase the property.
So then there's really no need to give you permission to withdraw 32,000 then. Till you have your public hearing, it comes that time, then the Board of Selectmen can agree to release those funds.
Come back.
I would think.
Come back.
I mean,
We can do it
if
however
we
you
support
like.
you.
I'm going on, I guess, what has happened before, which is it has been your approval, public hearing, continue on down the road. If you want to reverse some of those steps, that's fine with me.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious, well, if this takes off like I think it will, outdoor activity is really picked up. Will this area support a lot of people hiking?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I look at Mount Major and we've experienced a
A lot of
a
issues.
lot of problems with the pandemic. I think was instituted a lot of it, but even before the pandemic, it's a parking problem out there. And I just don't want to create more problems.
Well, there is a good parking lot at Knights Pond now, which is where the trail to these cliffs originates. Yeah, it's a decent sized parking lot. Lakes Region Conservation Trust has always been good about policing and patrolling and taking care of trails and enlarging parking lots if necessary. I would not think that would be a major concern.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve and support the $32,500 Conservation Commission, as long as all policies and procedures are followed and legal counsel signs off.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right.
Thank you for that.
Staying for the next one too, right?
Yes, he is.
Thought he was getting up ready to eat us.
No, he's staying.
Knock them off one at a time. This next project, the expansion of the Morse Preserve, has been in the works for a number of years. It's a little more complicated than what we just talked about. But what has happened is that this Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests is being given a conservation easement on 270 acres, which abuts the Morse Preserve, as you can see on the map. And in conjunction, there's also a donation of land in fee, 220 acre parcel, which will connect the Alton Bay State Forest to the Morse Preserve. And both of these, the conservation easement and the land, are donations. However, it turns out that it costs money to donate things. Organizations like the Forest Society, they're taking on considerable responsibilities when they take either an easement or land, and it costs them money to carry out those responsibilities. There are surveys to be done, appraisals to be made, and then there are ongoing, what we call monitoring expenses, which is going out there and making sure that nothing is going on the land that shouldn't be. Sometimes there's developments of trails. And the Forest Society has estimated that all of those costs to accept these two donations will be about $164,000. And they've approached us to make a contribution towards that $164,000. And we voted to invest $62,125 towards that. And again, in exchange for our money, we would get an executory easement in the conserved property, the 270 acres. And this is attractive to us for a number of reasons. Again, it connects a lot of conservation land. It would actually make it possible, if at some point in the future we choose to do it, we could have trail from Jones Field at the top of Mount Major across conservation land. It gives us the opportunity up at the end of Jesus Valley Road. The people who are donating the conservation easement have said that they would be amenable to a parking lot up the Class 6 road off the end of Jesus Valley, so that there would again be hiking access from that area up to Mount Major, which is I think we all know that access was closed last year because of some problems.
Yes, it was.
So again, Conservation Commission is very much in favor of this project, and it's the use of the Conservation Fund, which falls in line with what we were instructed to do some years ago at town meeting, which was to concentrate on conservation in the Belknaps. So we're using the funds pretty much in the manner we've been instructed to do.
These are the same folks that took over the Cape property. These are the same folks that took over the Cape property, Addison Cape property at the end of the road.
Mhm.
We'd already talked to him last, I think we talked to you last year that we had talked about putting a parking lot at the end of the road last year.
Yeah, we did discuss it. We've gone up there. We went up with the previous road agent.
Correct.
And looked at that, the landing area up there, and this landowner has said that that's okay by them. So it has the potential to help things out a little bit up there at Mount Major, which you were concerned about, Bob.
So so would this be an additional parking on what we talked about last year?
It's the same place, you know, we just have, I think, a more real potential to actually make the parking happen.
And to establish more acreage. Because this wasn't talked about last year. The part that was talked about last year was just the beaver dam itself.
Mm-hmm.
And along with the town putting in a parking area down by the log hut, right where that landing was, right in there.
Yeah, now we're talking about going right on up Class
Up
6
the road, turning off to the left.
Yeah.
Where the old cattle or sheep road went years ago,
Mhm.
all the way out to Alton
Yep.
Mountain Road.
Yeah, and if you follow up there a ways, kind of to the left of that, there's a nice log landing.
Yes.
And that's where the parking lot would be established. So it's completely on this 270 acres.
Okay.
And it would be possible to establish a new trail going around the folks who had the problems.
So,
Right.
And
that's what I was trying to get to, that you'll get them far enough away from those property owners that had problem with tourists and hikers going through their yard and giving a hard time.
which you can't blame them.
No, I do not blame them at all.
No, there was a lot of issues.
Yeah, it was a big problem. And, you know, this takes it completely around, hooks back into the existing trail network, and you're on your way up to Mount Major.
My only concern would be is how much you're gonna put on that road that's not even two cars wide. Traffic. I mean, I know what it was like for the last 2 years. Thank God I wasn't there during the day. But at night going in, I found out what it was like. But that road is not 2 cars wide.
Even Jesus Valley Road.
I'm meaning Jesus
That's
Valley
what he's
Road.
talking about.
So that means there's gonna be an
Well,
additional
if-
cost to the town. If you put a parking lot there that can hold 20 cars, 15, 20 cars, you're adding a lot of traffic to that road that can hardly handle the traffic it gets on its now from the residents that live there. So there's still gonna be an added cost here.
Yes.
So I mean,
We
it's
have
more
to-
than $62,000. Do we go to the conservation commission and say, you just increased the traffic flow on this road by 3 times the amount? You want money from your fund to upgrade the road?
Excuse me.
I guess we cross that when we come to it, but those are the, if we get to the point of seriously talking about parking lot, that would have to be part of the discussion.
Yeah,
I mean,
traffic
I'm all in-
study and
Yes.
on the width of the road and reconstruction.
That road won't take all those cars.
I mean, all I'm saying is, like you said, with this acquisition, these donations come a cost. Not just to the protection of forest and society, it comes to the cost of the taxpayers and the residents that live there.
Unplanned cost.
Well, no, these will be planned costs now because we see them coming.
As
But I'm just saying there's,
Mount
you know, it's
Major
great
wasn't-
to have all this open area for everybody.
Mount Major's cost to the town of Alton was not planned.
So I have no problem with open areas, but there does come a cost to it. I just hate to see all that influx before then there's a problem, because we already know there's going to be a problem. Get the problem fixed first before there is one. That's all.
Address the road first, then address parking area in the entrance.
It's very understandable to me. Makes a lot of sense.
Doing a road survey and doing a survey of what's needed for that size parking area.
And you've got to talk to the residents. What do they want?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Someone won't be happy at the end of the road.
Say,
tall
that's
guy.
gonna- Yep.
I'm never home during the day, so it doesn't really bother me. So Gene, the other thing, how much money do you have in your fund? You were talking, taking the 32.
400,000. Little over 400,000.
And that would be all that would be needed is a 62.
62,
125
125 is what the,
What am I looking at here with the 101,722? Is that in conjunction with the 220 acre fee? You see the remaining transaction?
yeah, well, as I mentioned, the Forest Society estimates that their total transaction acquisition costs are going to be about 164,000.
Mhm.
So if we donate 62, 125, they've still got to come up with 101,
Okay,
722, which they're committed.
They gotta come up with the difference.
that's what they gotta come up with.
That's what they're going to, yeah, through fundraising or, and I'm sure it's going to be fundraising because they've started this campaign already.
Mhm.
To raise that 101,000. Which the Conservation Commission will participate in.
Mhm. I think it's a good idea, but it definitely has to be researched and all the input from all the abutters of Jesus Valley Road has to be
before any-
included and looked at
Before any development. of
before
the
anything.
lot.
I'm thinking before this, almost putting the cart before the horse.
Hmm.
Road study has to be done first, in my opinion.
Before the property is acquired, you mean?
That's what I think. You'd hate to see spending money out for something that can't be done later on to be able to gain access or proper access. The road can't handle or barely handle the traffic that's going through there now.
Right.
What's going to happen once
Well,
this
if-
is, you know,
If no parking lot was established, then there would be no change in traffic. So establishing the parking lot to me is a separate issue from conserving the land,
Mhm.
which the landowner wants to
I say,
donate to the Forest Society. The chances are the Forest Society is going to accept that donation.
Mhm.
Then
nothing would go any further at that point.
right, they'd have that piece of land and you know, whatever they do with it as far as what you might call recreational opportunities would be
Mhm.
less if the parking lot weren't established. I suspect that even if we did not donate our 62, they would go through with this project. Because to them, to acquire 270 acre easement, abutting property that they already own is, what's the vernacular, no brainer? So, you know, Conservation Commission feels that it's a good idea. As you know, we've been very well, there are wetlands up in there that feed down through there. So we've got, you know, conserving land is the best way to have clean water. It's that much more land that's open to the public for whatever uses, hunting.
Does this follow the same track, Gene, as the other one did? You'll have to hold a public hearing on it before monies are expended. And then all butters will be also notified that it's going to affect. Do that or no?
The butters are notified for what purpose?
Well, what purpose is because there's going to be a bigger influx in their neighborhood. I mean, if you're talking a parking lot that can hold 15 or 20 cars, which nobody knows yet because that hasn't been decided. And all of a sudden you're going to make a road bearing off to the left just before the private property, which that's going to have to be 2 cars wide for public safety. That's an influx to the neighborhood. So shouldn't the abutters have the right to be notified that there's a public hearing that's going to affect their neighborhood with twice, 3 times?
I'd have no problem notifying of.
I just think anytime like that, butters should be notified along with the general public, but also the butters notified by mail, registered mail, only because the planning board has to do that when a business petitions the planning board. And this is a commercial operation. It might be a nonprofit. It's a commercial. I mean, the amount of money that this society has and what they've taken over for land and they protect, it's a nonprofit business. So that's all I'm saying.
Certainly it is. Yeah, if you want me to notify the butters when we have a public hearing,
I think you should. Just in case they don't hear about it, because not everybody picks up the paper, but these do affect butters directly, more so than the whole town.
I think you're right. This project in particular would affect them more than a lot of the things that we do.
Any other questions from anyone? So the general consensus is to have Gene do a investigation of all the abutters.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, what he's looking for is the
The 62.
62 and no monies be expended until all final documents and everything have been reviewed by town council and everything else.
And we've held a public hearing.
We held the public hearings according to law.
Invest the money first, in other words. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second,
Yeah, I'll say.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just so I can clarify for the future with this particular motion, when you say attorneys and you mentioned
Our
town
town
council.
council has to sign off on all paperwork.
Okay, no, that's fine.
That's-
Whether we're
that's
talking
what I'm
about the same attorney or whether or not they had a different one, I was
No,
just inquiring
not
about.
New Hampshire Protection Forest, our attorney.
Okay.
Somebody that represents us solely. So that's, I'm sorry, I'll make that more.
No, I just didn't know whether conservation themselves had somebody they used for these land transactions that you were referring to separate. So that's why I just want to make sure.
The town council.
The
Good.
town attorney is,
Okay,
we've been using for anything. Sure. Except for one instance.
absolutely.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Jim.
Good luck.
Seacoast Business and Business Machines copier proposal.
Josh isn't here. I'm gonna speak to
Okay.
that one, Mr. Chairman. So what you have in front of you, so I tasked the IT director we're coming up in the end of our copier lease that we have, this our 3-year copier lease. So I had gone around and pulled the departments, try to get a feel of their usage and their feelings on their current situation. I enlisted the help of the IT director. He had some experience in selling these products as well as, obviously maintaining them and doing the software. So he went through and sort of did an audit of our system and what we needed to upgrade for machines, for capabilities and compatibility. So he was able to sit down with our current copier company, provide a spec sheet of all the upgrades, new machines, and you see in section 2 would be, the machines, the type of machines they're upgraded in each of the big departments. He's able to get some more finishing, a finishing drum, a fax system, all updated software compatible. Now, this is with the current system that we had. So it was worth bringing to the board because when he got done upgrading all of our systems, proposal together, if we stayed with the same company, we could renew with the new equipment for $64 less a month than what we pay on our existing contract and we have been paying for the last 3 years.
This is a 5-year contract with them?
No, 60 months.
Service plan 60.
Yeah.
It's been the past 5 years is what it is. Okay.
Is there any limit on how many prints?
Yes, there is. There are standard limits for black and white and
That's not listed in our pack. That's the only reason I was asking.
Including 50,
50 sheet, it doesn't give us some, because I remember on the last contract, it said how many sheets each department or whatever were
Right.
allowed to, up to a certain amount, and then it was so much more.
Sure. My understanding is that wasn't, I don't believe that was part of the upgrade, that the numbers stayed the same as far as usage goes. It was the equipment itself and what he was highlighting in his bullet points as to what the upgrades actually are. But by all means, if, I can get that information.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the copier lease for $605 per month, terms of 60 months. Service plan will remain the same. It has been for the past 5 years, as long as the expense in copying has not changed. A number of times.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Alton Sports and Music Camp, fee waiver request.
Mr. Chairman, what you have is a letter from the Sports and Music Camp Incorporated. In the letter, it explains that the company, they've been hosting this camp through the Christian Conference Center, Retreat Center, and also utilizing the conference center down in the Bay for some activities, and Jones Field. They are a nonprofit. They do offer the camp for Alton residents, and they do service, not solely Alton residents, but they do a large number of Alton residents, as they outline. They had originally put this request through Parks and Rec, and because of their status as a nonprofit and the factors that they highlighted in here, the Parks and Rec director had recommended that they put it in writing for the board to consider.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request from the Sports and Music Camp Incorporated dated March 9th, 2022. As long as it is facilitated to the Parks and Rec director, that you take care of all materials, no litter left behind.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Fire Department donation acceptance.
There's a raffle.
Question one.
application
I'm
right
sorry.
there. I'm
Did I
sorry.
skip one?
After-
Yeah, the raffle.
Oh, yes, I did. Raffle approval.
Sorry. That's all right, Mr. Chairman. This is just a raffle application for the Alton Youth League. This was sort of a gray area because the raffle that they're holding doesn't have a fixed location. They're doing raffles, drawings every day. So they're not utilizing a town building or holding it in one location, but it is a raffle nevertheless. So they filled out an application for your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the Alton Youth League raffle presentation as presented this evening, application.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, now Fire Department donation acceptance.
Good evening. As you can see, the letter from the Mark O'Connell Foundation. They're a foundation that really promotes safety and supports rescue on the lakes. They asked us if we had any needs. They knew about our airboat program, and they kind of asked where we were at with that and if we had any needs to upgrade it. With that, I sent them to the captain, who was really heading up that program. He told them some of the things they needed, and they want to make these donations. The trailer and the grass rake, LED lights, and then the GPS are all going to basically go right to the airboat itself in support of that program. The other large donation is the drone. So they've Yeah, it's one of the better drones out there for sure. And that will save time and, use less manpower as far as doing searches, especially in the open areas and the open lakes. As part of this program, we've obviously worked on some, SOGs and procedures to use this and when it's appropriate. And we've been working with PD to kind of jointly have a drone program together because they have some search and they have some needs as well. With that, we would share pilots and be able to work together on some of these things. So there is a certification process for running the drone itself in a commercial operation. So
I think that's great. That's a major asset.
we're incredibly fortunate. I mean, it's almost $20,000 worth of stuff
Mhm.
that's being donated.
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic. Any questions?
I just have one.
Yes.
Airboat trailer and grass rake. What's the grass rake?
So the grass rake is actually it's an extension of the hull that comes up in the front. So if you
Mhm.
think of when we're doing transitions from,
Okay, so it makes it easier to get.
correct.
Basically kind of keeps
Now I know.
water out of the boat when you get onto water from ice.
Mr. Chairman, do we have to have a public hearing to receive this gift of this magnitude of financial?
Well, the financial, what the assessed value is over the $10,000 limit, I would say, because I don't think the policy differentiates between monetary value or, property value, whether cash value. So I think, yes, we will have to have a public hearing to accept it.
Okay.
I have no problem.
But I think we have to have a motion
To approve.
to go ahead with a public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Yes. A motion to go forward with public.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, and fire department utility vehicle replacement?
Yep. It's basically that time. The utility truck is 10 years old. It's at the point where CIP is ready to replace it. It's getting tired, obviously, for emergency response, definitely tired for pulling the trailer with the equipment from Mount Major. We've gone through and the bid process for the vehicle has become extremely difficult right now, as if anybody has tried to find a vehicle. So state bid had one option on it. We also contacted Banks and New Car, and obviously state bid, as usual, came out below. The thing with state bid is it is the New Hampshire state bid, but the dealer is not a New Hampshire dealer. They are, is it Ohio?
They're from Ohio.
Yeah, they're out in Ohio, but they're a high volume state bid dealer, basically municipal dealer. This price includes delivery and it includes pickup of a trade. So it meets our bid process because it is New Hampshire state bid.
Does the state, when they purchase it, do they purchase that out of state?
Yes.
Do too?
Yes. Yeah. So state bid has used this particular dealership, I believe, for the past 3 years. And I believe they have 60 plus vehicles on order the last time I talked to the dealership.
It's a 3/4 ton diesel.
Yep.
Extended cab.
And just so you know as well, there were other dealerships that put in for state bid and they were all contacted as well. And while this dealership was actually the lowest, the other ones were not honoring their state bid pricing because of the demand in the consumer market, essentially.
Now, has any mechanic looked at this truck that you want to get rid of at 73,000 miles? Like, you guys say it's tired, but 73,300 miles isn't really that rough.
The Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, the 10-year replacement cycle is basically based on history of town vehicles. I'll throw, for instance, the Dodge and the Ford that the highway department had for some time that have had through several motors. So Warren, the town mechanic, is under this on a fairly regular basis. We ended up removing side steps at his recommendation due to some rot that's going on behind the rocker panels and that kind of thing. So essentially based on the vehicle lifespan history with motors, transmissions, that kind of thing. That's where we've come up with the 10-year lifespan because costs become exponential essentially after that 10-year mark.
Is that a gas truck, Pat?
The one that's there now is a gas truck, yes.
And what's the intent with it to after you?
The intent is to trade it in and get $15,000 for it.
That's all that truck's worth, is what they're saying.
That's
That's the trade-in value that we received from the dealership. I mean, the other option that we would have is to put it out on municipal bid and see what happens with that.
I think that's what I would do.
I think in the truck market that we have today, and I'm not against you guys getting a truck. I think that truck that you have now, if you put it on municipal bid, I think you're gonna do a little better than $15,000 on that truck.
Right, more like 20.
we may just remember. So when it goes on municipal bid, that money goes basically to general funds. So we're gonna have to take more than 46 out of
Okay,
the
yeah,
capital reserve,
I got you.
which is fine.
No, I got you.
Just part of the equation. That's all.
And you guys, the new one you're getting is diesel.
Correct.
So you,
So in the summertime, I think I know where you're going.
Yeah.
In the summertime, this actually carries around 230 gallons of water as well, pretty much for the entirety of the summer and serves as a secondary forestry truck for us. Forestry equipment is fairly limited. It's not something we have on every truck. So when we do go mutual aid, it leaves very little equipment left in town. So this truck is essentially would be used to go out of town on those mutual aid responses to provide the manpower because it has the bigger cab and also that smaller cache of forestry equipment.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the request of the fire department for 3/4 ton diesel extended cab state bid, along with reclamation of the state bid for the upfitting, a total of $46,808.40, using the trade-in of $15,000. This way here, it lowers their costs for them to trade this vehicle in. It's picked up, it's hauled out, new ones brought in. And I've done several deals now out of state with different ones, Michigan, buying trucks for my store, and I've never had a problem. The deals have worked out really good. It wasn't state bid, it was private sales through dealerships, but I think this would be the best way for them to go. Myself.
Is there a second?
Motions to take the trade in.
Let them trade the truck in with the dealership with the state bid. That way they're not pulling more money out of their fire department equipment reserve. And they can get the truck done and ordered, because otherwise they can do it now. But you take a chance on that auction, not getting the 15 on a 250.
This gives us a known number to work with.
I just think gas job 250, the age of it, I don't think you're going to get that on the municipal bid.
The only other factor that I'll bring to the table on that is if we ordered that, and this was a month ago. So if we ordered that a month ago when we got this bid, we wouldn't see the vehicle until September. So that adds some level of uncertainty in the vehicle market, just for your consideration.
So the vehicle that you're going to be trading in, that's still in service.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Andy, just for clarification, were you in favor of that or not in favor of that? Just for the, I know I didn't,
yeah, no.
because the microphone, the minutes, they has to be verbalized, sorry.
Yeah, the microphone is gonna be pulled down.
Yeah, just
Public Works Department, rock and asphalt crushing, RFPs and specs. After you.
Any questions on what I've prepared for your review? And if no questions, I'd like to get this out as soon as possible to get this process started.
Chairman, make a motion to approve the invitation proposal for rock and asphalt crushing.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You're right here. DPW fleet vehicle bid specs.
So I've put together here a bid proposal once again under CIP plan. As you just heard from the fire department, we have two vehicles which are slated within that plan for replacement, one being the 2002 Fire Forestry 550 vehicle, and as well as the 2016 Dodge 3/4 ton pickup. I've outlined in here where I see these future vehicles going or potentially going. They'll be somewhat dependent upon your next item on the agenda relative to the 2002 Ford F-550 chassis. But the 2016 Dodge 3/4 ton pickup, which is already, I think it's on transmission number 2, will be destined to go to the, under my control, into the cemetery. They have currently right now the old the old solid waste facility pickup truck up there, which I believe is a 2005 Ford truck in need of a lot of repair. So we would be looking to decommission that pickup and/or, it may be held through the summer months, but most likely would be looking to go down the road come winter time.
So you would do the same thing we did before to allow the cemetery to use that truck, correct?
Yes, I think that's how they do it, just
Well,
based
you have
upon
to,
the,
because if not, the RSA states that you cannot use cemetery monies. And if you give it to the cemetery department as their own truck, you couldn't use those monies on plowing the roads or anything else. So that's why we did it that way. So we could always use it if it was needed somewhere else through Parks and Rec.
yeah, I know that the other vehicles, I believe, I take that back. I'd have to check the registrations, but I think they all still say
Down the mall.
kind of all
Yeah.
highway
The
department.
last truck we did when we sent the solid waste truck down there, that's the way we did it, only because you can't use town funds, not supposed to use town funds in the cemetery, nor take cemetery funds and use them outside of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, absent you folks doing a legal exchange or doing it for $1 type of thing. In that situation there. My understanding is, I believe, even though the funds that are raised and paid and utilized for the maintenance of the equipment there, being the truck and fleet type items, are paid out of the general fund budget. In that situation there, which would be different if in fact you end up purchasing a piece of equipment like you did, like the excavator and a few of those other items out of the perpetual care funds, then you need to be able to show an exchange of assets back and forth in order to ensure that you're not utilizing something just for another
Right.
department. So that's very similar to what we do with the water department, very similar to what we do with the cemetery. We make sure that's the reason to track these things, track work orders and that kind of stuff. So one may ask why we didn't go with a straight state bid on this. We may have to do that. We've done a considerable amount of research as well as the fire department has for acquisition of vehicles. The fire chief's exactly right. Unless you go and buy something off the lot right now, then you are bound to a lot of different, restrictions. First of all, Dodge, Chrysler will not honor any government sales to any municipalities. Ford is limiting all their inventory. I can tell you that there has been a couple Ford dealerships that have ordered fleet type vehicles in for municipalities and pricing to be determined. So once again, they're not honoring these state bid contract prices other than the dealerships that have already bought stuff in inventory ahead of time and been able to get, them qualified as such. But we may end up as a default, if we don't get any bids or anything, we may have to look at what state bid is on that. And I'm not sure, and I tried to look real quick. I actually have it up on my phone here to see, but I'm not sure that under the for the size vehicles that we're looking for, I'm not sure if in fact the single rear wheel, which I guess there is just looking to see if they had under the state bid one here, if they did have a 1-ton. So we're looking to change. Yeah, they do have, let's see if it's dual rear wheel or single rear wheel. Looks like a single rear wheel, 4-wheel drive vehicle. I'm just looking to see if they had it in, they only have it, looks like in a diesel, but they do have a regular cab and a dual rear wheel cab on a 3500 on a state bid. But once again, we're looking to do the gas on the pickup. That's under the, the recommendation of the town mechanic on that vehicle itself. We're looking to up the GVW on the pickup with being able to plow with that as well, and then put a polycaster sander in that utilized for the fleet. Basically, either the highway manager or public works director to utilize during a snowstorm.
But this here right now, you're looking to
Just put these out to bid.
put these out to bid.
Yep, tried to pick general specifications. We'll send it out, see what we get. And, we'll also solicit from state bid as well, based upon the specifications. Once again, I only see the diesels being listed, but the diesels right now, best I can tell, are running near at least $10,000 more on the vehicle itself.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
approve the Public Works Director's state bid, bid specs for the 2 vehicles that he submitted this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I did see on here that if in fact I order something from the dealership now, it's according to this for a state bid, it's 360 days estimated,
350.
360.
They're
So,
all the same.
yeah, I mean, all the upfit body people and all that stuff, they've been saying that 2023 before people will get anything under, municipalities and government stuff. So.
Okay, used bucket truck purchase.
So I had brought this back a while back
I
before
remember.
you as well. We had, you board to give an authorization to go up to 25,000 through using municipal bid. We tried to secure a vehicle that was in Massachusetts being used as a fire alarm vehicle, bucket truck on a 550 size chassis. I believe that one was a 42-foot as well. As far as its bucket height. With that, we were outbid on that. And I believe that one, the final one came in at 30. I think I'd look back at Courtney because she and I talked about it, but I believe it was right around 30,000. that one finally went for. So of course, we were out of the bidding situation there. The head mechanic, Warren Dow, has been doing a little bit, we've been monitoring both Munusi bid as well as, several other outlets as well, that way. And Craigslist, several of them. He did find two of them recently that were very clean looking vehicles on Craigslist, which are in your packet as well. I did not send you up, but we did come across another one, which is on Municipal bid. Well, that is actually a full blown forestry truck, which has a 60-foot boom on that one. So it's one of the big ones. I'm hesitant relative to that just because of our size of our roads and such. But right now, that one on the bid scale, which has, I think, 3 more days to go, is at a little over $20,000. That's a 2007 International 4300 truck with a chip box on it and boom on that. But as you have seen, we've got some issues that are happening with our forest and with the ash trees that are dying and such. And there seems to be a week that doesn't go by where we're being called by residents concerned and feared that the roadside trees that are now losing their bark and everything from the virus or the bugs that they have in them, they are going to come down. And a lot of these are within the right of way. We do try to defer to the co-op or the other utilities as well, but some of them are clearly going to end up being ours. Some of these, in order to manage them, be a lot safer to manage them by utilizing a bucket type vehicle in order to try to get them down. Some of them will still have to contract a contractor just because of their ultimate size that way. So we budget annually a little over $4,000 annually to do, roadside tree removal that way. And we've taken a pretty good hit on it already this year in 2022. So put that forward. This would just be that
To look at.
we would be authorized to go and, try to pursue these and at least be able to try to secure it. In other words, if in fact the mechanic inspects it and everything adds up, he gives it a good one, good work over that way, and that we could negotiate in order to buy something.
You would have 3 to look at then, including the one you were just mentioning.
Correct. Yep.
So Scott, just say if you did do this, you're still looking at vehicles at a 2007. So we're looking at 15 years old already. What do you think the life expectancy of those vehicles will be when you invest another $32,000?
Well, I mean, I'd like to think that, that we'd at least be able to get, anywhere from, I would hope at least 5 to 7 years out of them. When I purchased and built the one in Moultonboro when I was there, that truck was a 2008 truck, and it was not brand new. The cabin chassis was bought used. It was a 450. I bought that, and I think it was 2000 and must have been right around 2015, just before, about a year or two before I left over there. So it was 14 or 15. So it already had roughly 7 years on the cabin chassis, then had an upfit put on it with a bucket and everything. And then they're looking to, I believe, in this year's budget to replace that. So roughly they've run it, another 7 years that way. It's not going to be it's not a continuous line piece. That way it would be utilized for that type of function and/or, taking the flags up and down on the poles and some of these other things that I've outlined, changing the light bulbs down there at the bay and on some of the light fixtures that are up.
Do you have any idea? Don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
What a replacement cost would be if the turntable goes or the boom itself goes, the electronics on a vehicle this old? Do you think, do we know what to look for when we go to purchase one of these older vehicles to see the telltale signs that it's worn to the point where we might get a year out of it and have to spend money on it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt when you're buying used vehicles,
Mhm.
there's certainly that risk that's involved. I did get a price on what a new one costs, and a little stifling that way. It was about $125 to buy one and have it completely outfitted that way. The one that I had built in Moltenboro was about $40,000 that way. I don't know what they appropriated in Moltenboro to replace the new one. I don't know if you've run into it at all, Brock, as far as pricing any of them, but tree trucks.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to on the booms themselves, if.
Yeah, we
something
want to make sure
needs
it
to
was
be
all
repaired.
certified and everything, that it's been gone over by take it
They
to an
have to
actual.
be annually certified.
Right. I know that one of the vehicles that's listed in the packet that I gave you, which I believe is the 1 year newer vehicle there, that or the white one, I believe, it does show in there and shows all the tag certifications in it. I didn't see that with the yellow one. But once again, we haven't dove into these because I said, why jump into it unless you have the support of the board to go and do a little bit more work on these and find out what kind of a price tag that we want to be in. I was hoping that we would be able to do this in that 30,000, 30 to 40, knowing what we had built before. I have asked the company that had built the one that I had in Moltenboro, which is RBG out of Raymond, New Hampshire, to look for a used bucket that would be able to be put onto another cabin chassis. The idea being that, to be honest with you, the old forestry that we have, which is a 2002, which will be due to be replaced, that is relatively low miles, has a diesel motor in it, and has had somewhat limited use to a certain extent. I mean, it's been used every day since mud season started, but breaking roads. But that being able to put a new body and stuff on that. But they haven't had something come in yet where they can swap it, do that out and give me a build price because they don't know what they're going to have into. When they go through and do a build on one of those, they do a complete refurb. So they go right through it, soup to nuts, so that they can give you a warranty with the actual boom and everything there and the hydraulics and making sure everything's in good shape.
The operators have to be certified to use the boom.
Yeah, so anybody that, you have to go up and you have to be bucket certified to do that. We can get that training through a number of different either vendors and or through the state in order to get that done. You have to be harnessed as well.
Okay.
My experience has been, I think I talked to you about it, Scott. Down in Merrimack, we took one of our 6-wheel dump trucks, plow trucks, out of service like a year before it was due to come out of service. And we went through it. And we went over to Q's company, went out to bid, but Q's over in Amherst, put a brand new bucket on it. Now, this type truck no longer gets the mileage. It doesn't plow snow anymore, doesn't haul gravel anymore, just low usage, the truck itself. We refurbished the truck. We ended up with a nice truck. We ended up with a brand new boom. Now, the beauty of the new boom is you know what you got. Where when you buy a used boom, you really don't know what you got. It's pretty hard to determine and check it. If it's been certified, that means it's been checked out.
Yeah, the white one that is in your packet.
It has been.
Comes, yeah, and it comes, the only thing I didn't care for much about that one was it has a gas
It's
motor in
gas.
it. And, idle time, when you're talking, the other part is it has 181,000
81.
miles on it. So potentially you'd be looking at putting the motor or transmission in it, and that side of it. Not that those aren't, deal breakers, but once again, they have come with it with an expense involved. So, I would want to make sure that if we are going to look at one of these here, we would want to take it, and make arrangements to actually have it go to a facility and have it checked out before we were to purchase it. So that we had a comfort feeling. I mean, I have a lot of faith in Warren, but he hasn't dealt with any of these aerial buckets as well. Wouldn't want to put him in a position where he was saying, yeah, I think it's a good situation without having him have some backup of validation. So, with that in mind, I do know that, I've had a limited correspondences with, it's the town of awful in Massachusetts now. On this other truck, I did reach out to them and asked a couple of questions about the truck. It has been recently certified and inspected, and it's already been, DOT inspected as far as passing its test in Massachusetts, and it said it's bucket certified and has been in use and does have hydraulics in the bucket. I'm a little concerned just because, our operation of it is we don't use it like a street crew every day, and having such a big bucket on it, a big boom. And I'm not familiar with using the big ones versus using the smaller 32-foot versus using a 60-foot. So a little bit different.
This one here, particular one is a 42.
Good stability. Don't get me wrong. I like, the idea that Selectman Hold has as far as having a heavier foundation when you're dealing with a bucket. You don't get as much bounce and move around. So on that, I like the yellow one in this packet here for a couple of different features. It has a set of stabilizers on it as well. So you have that a little bit more on the whole stability side of things, because, you're operating from the roadway and you're telescoping out generally over ditches and those types of things in order to clean brush and overhang. So.
Do you have any idea what the bucket assembly would cost?
On a brand new one, I believe when RBG gave me a price, I thought it was 68,000 for a brand new bucket setup. That would be put on.
Basically what I was asking
Put on
before.
our cabin chassis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was asking you before.
Oh, I didn't know
What a
about a whole new one.
to rebuild or replacement cost would be.
Yeah. I apologize.
Yep.
But RBG had given a price of it is 68,000 for just the lift part, bucket part that would go on a 550 style cabin chassis or a 450. Either one. I mean, granted, it could be whatever that GVW size is, I believe is, either the 19.5 or 17,000 pound vehicle.
Further questions?
So that's 68, that's the whole assembly put on your cabin chassis.
That was my understanding, was it'd be 68.
Ballpark figure.
Yep. Yeah, I told them what we had for a cabin chassis.
You're talking twice the money if you went that route. What about you?
Or brand new. Our refurb, once again, I got my refurb and I'm guessing, I think we paid for the cabin chassis. It might have been around, I wanted to say it was $10,000 or $11,000 for the cabin chassis back then. It was 7 years old. It might have been a little bit less than that, but I want to say it was only 2-wheel drive. I'd have to, my memory fades me at times with everything, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood. So the rest of the truck, with them installing it, and everything, putting on a refurb, one was right around 30, I'm guessing 30 and change or right around 30.
Now, what do you got for miles on the forestry that you have now?
Ooh, I think the mileage on that is right around, I want to say it's right around 70. Got a 7.3 diesel in it. Turbo.
What year is that?
02. A lot of public works places work off of the fire department. Surplus, because of the ability to use those sometimes. As long as they're not rotted out.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, so what you're looking for tonight is you want to go look at both of these?
Yeah, and if we can negotiate something
Negotiate.
as far as trying to secure it, and up to that dollar amount of 32,000.
Do we have a motion?
We'll bring it back to you, but if in fact we tell people that we have board authorization, if we negotiate something and we know that we're okay on our end, and, say we negotiate something at 28 and we know that we have your blessing for up to 32, then, we'll bring it back for finalization, of course, in a report.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the Public Works Director and Town Mechanic to inspect worthiness of a used bucket truck and allow them to negotiate up to $32,000?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Up to the next one.
Not yet.
Break?
You got a break.
Not yet.
Get a break.
That'll be part of old business.
Okay. Well, I'm up on old business.
Oh, he's got it added.
I got one.
Oh, you
more.
added
It's
that?
amended, yes.
They had one.
Oh,
They
I'm
amended
sorry.
it.
Number 11.
Sorry.
We'll call you back. Okay, basically on this, I have questions on payroll for the town administrator coming from the police chief's budget. I'm wondering how this came about and how this was approved, because I don't remember seeing it. So I've had a few questions in my mind about it. Where the salary is coming from the police department to the town administrator, I don't understand how this actually came about. It looks like it's been budgeted up to date around $33,675. And I'd like to get an idea as to how this came about.
Sure. So in the contract, it specifies in a transition from the New Hampshire retirement system to the town administrator's job. As you know, it takes some time to get out of the retirement system and make that transition. So in the contract, there was a transition where it went from upon signing of the contract that I would serve as interim town administrator with a permanent transition date of September 1 out of group 2. Now, when I consulted with the New Hampshire retirement system beforehand, they told me, they suggested that that would be the best way to go, talking to a retirement counselor. Subsequently, after talking to the retirement system further, and not talking to the counselor, but their legal representation, the only way that that can be done is for me to continue to hold the police chief's position. So what I would have had to do was hold up the police department's movement for the next 6 months till September 1. So the issue has since been resolved. I am completely out of group 2 now. But the payment under the police department was I was still occupying that position as a full-time police chief until the swearing in of the new police chief. And that's when the conversation with the retirement came about. Once I gave up holding that administrative role, I went to a full-time patrolman. But in talking with them, the difference is between a full-time patrolman is not an administrative position. It's a patrol position. So I would have had to continue as the police chief to justify holding the interim title and still being in group 2.
I see.
But that was all spelled out and specified in the contract that was signed by the board.
I don't recall the selectmen not being informed that it was coming out of, that the salaries were coming out of the police department budget and how this is going to be reimbursed.
How is it? It's going to be
How does this-
reimbursed?
How does the monies go back from the police department to the administration?
Well, it doesn't, because when I was holding the interim before there was even a police chief for the first few months out of the year, my salary was budgeted in that budget. The approved 2022 budget has my salary in there, not the current chief's.
I see.
Okay, so I guess my next question, Mr. Chairman, would be, so when come at budget time next year, the selectmen's rep, whoever it may be, needs to have this paperwork in front of them. So when the budget committee asks, why was the police department's budget so out of whack? And the public and the administrator's position isn't out of whack. So we can at least some whoever's there representing the board of selectmen can say, this is what happened. And I guess what Mr. Heath was just saying, there's been contact with the New Hampshire Retirement Board. I haven't seen anything on the inbox. Maybe I've missed it to the Board of Selectmen from the New Hampshire Retirement Board because they're talking about one of our positions here in town. We should be getting notification of this too, just so there's a paper trail. Because right now, from what Mr. Heath just said, provisions are part of the contract, which would be item 7 would be null and void.
No, nothing's null and void in that contract.
Well, why, you just said you withdrew from, you no longer
Yeah,
in the
you're
group
right.
2.
You're right. And the retirement system said, I don't care, specifically verbatim, I don't care what your title is. You just can't contribute to group 2. This is not about interim versus full-time
Well, I
or
understand
anything
it,
like
but
that.
number 7 really doesn't exist at this point.
Oh, no, it does. It exists is that I serve as the interim town administrator, and then on September 1, I become full-time. The only thing that changes is my personal, which again, we're talking about personnel specifically right now, which should have been a non-public, but
Well, we're not really talking personnel because the contract.
you're not talking personnel.
Contract is this contract is public knowledge.
No, you're not talking about the contract, and it's your entirety. You're getting in very much deeper than that. But you know what? It doesn't matter.
I don't think
Because I
so.
choose to answer it anyways, because I have nothing to hide.
No names. It's
Okay.
strictly positions.
No, the bottom line is there's nothing null and void. The board doesn't have to choose to take any action because the group 2, whether I contribute, whether I don't contribute, is my personal decision. That has nothing to do with the board. The board contract says I remain as interim till September 1. If the board chooses to keep it that way, I stay interim until September 1 and I take my appointment. The retirement system has already recognized that my initial appointment, the contract is valid. The contract is valid in the sense that the board has exempted the position from contributing to the New Hampshire retirement system under RSA 100, which was spelled out in the contract. So there's nothing that has been invalidated in the contract whatsoever, other than the fact that effective today, this new pay period, I am no longer contributing to group 2. I'm no longer contributing to the New Hampshire retirement system, period.
Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
The contract, the new town administrator was signed by the majority of the board.
Yes.
New contract is in effect. We have, somebody has a problem with it. Legal problem, go about it legally. I say we move on, Mr. Chairman.
Anything further?
Just to add for your accounting purposes, payroll from now on, since I'm not contributing to group 2 anymore, will begin this pay period coming out of the administrative budget. So the police department's not going to suffer anything because they're still down positions. And they've only paid for my salary out of the budget for 2 months. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
so
very
that will
much.
not continue anymore.
Thank you. Old business. Public Works Department crack ceiling contract extension. You, Scott.
Yep. So you have before you a request for a contract extension by myself. I did reach out to our current crack sealing vendor, Connecticut Seal Coating out of Bethlehem, Connecticut. They've been doing the crack sealing here for a number of years here in Alton. And their contract finished up in 2021, which was a 3-year contract. And under the provisions that are listed within the contract, it allows for a 1-year renewal clause. And they have indicated that they would like to continue and have provided a quote for 2022, which is at the same per pound price as 2021. From what I can recall, it's probably the same per pound price that there has been now for several years, because I do recall we piggybacked on Alton when I was in New Durham, and it was $1.49 a pound. So it does meet all DOT standards relative to their seal coating standards. And they do, as you can see in the letter there, it kind of outlines what we had in our provisions as well. I'd make that recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions?
Chairman, make a motion to approve the crack sealing contract extension for 1 year to Connecticut Seal Coating in Bethlehem, Connecticut at the 2021 rate of $1.49 per pound.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Water bandstand wedding approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request to use the word wedding, the water bandstand for a wedding that had been brought to you a little while back.
Yes.
It's gone to the Water Bandstand Committee. They've unanimously approved it with a fee of $250 just for the board's future knowledge. During their vote, they took a recommendation to approve all weddings with a $250 fee, providing the board approves it. So these in the future will not have to go back to the committee for a wedding. That's why they did that. So.
Right, exactly. We have a motion?
Well, normally when somebody does these applications, they spell out the time they're gonna be there, the usage, they're gonna have alcohol there.
There's no, not on that. This is just the approval process for them to do that. And the conditions would be on there. They know the conditions that they get. There's no alcohol out there. It's a $250 cost.
Well, normally we have that application. Like the boat show, they have an application. They just we approved it last week, and it had all kinds of stipulations on it. And they're using a piece of property, a piece of town property, right?
It's the same process as we've done in the past, and the last two weddings that we did last year. It was the same. It went through. They voted on whether or not to approve having a wedding function on the water bandstand, and it was presented to the Board of Selectmen for approval for a fee and to utilize the water bandstand. And they had to follow guidelines of the Parks and Recreation.
There's an application you fill out, but I have no problem with it. It's just that I don't know why it should be different.
Oh, and it does.
In the back,
It's August 25th at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, at 3 o'clock.
But isn't this only just to increase the fee at the bandstand? This isn't.
No, this would be the actual approval to
This
use
is an application of appointment to a board, a commission, or committee.
Yeah, that was a little off there.
No,
Well, yeah, because you're not appointing this individual to a commission or a committee. They're asking to use a.
they're asking for usage.
So they should have been a different form used, because this form state, as Bob was saying, it's an appointment to a board, commission, or
Yeah.
committee. So a different form should have been used.
This is the wrong form, exactly.
I think when they were looking at it, they thought it was, they grabbed it thinking it was an appointment, like requesting an appointment, because I don't think there's no specific request form
No,
for the bandstand. Would be a generic one.
no, it was just generic, yeah.
Okay, with that all said, we approve.
Okay.
The bandstand for the wedding.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, next, minimum max wage structure and adjustments.
All right, Mr. Chairman, what I presented to you, the max min scale, highlighted in red. The reason I brought this in front of you is, so over the last several months, we've done a lot of changes with the max min scale with reclassification. A lot of it had to surface around the DPW departments and all that encompassing. One of the things that we've talked about is continuity between positions, same positions. So one of the positions that got reclassified was the secretarial position to administrative assistant, with a small increase in the min maximum. And we have that same position in every department. Not every single one, but the ones highlighted. So administration has one, assessing has one, building has one. And because we've gone in and out of shortages within these positions, we've been doing a lot of cross training. We have people working, double, well, the new deputy finance director we hired came from the building office. She's been doing double duty for a while. And the reasoning behind this is we wanted to, just like when we talked about the laborer positions, keeping them all at the same price. So you don't have a laborer from highway department jumping to solid waste for another $1 an hour raise or 50 cents an hour, and keeping those positions consistent. So this change that it's being recommended to you would keep all of those secretarial positions to administrative assistants in the particular departments that are highlighted, and bring that max min chart to the same of the reclassifications as we've already done.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minimum wage rate structure for administrative assistants in all departments. Minimum, the low being 17, the high being 23.
Second that.
Any discussion? Favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Any selectmen reports?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Andrew, I wouldn't imagine there would be too many.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. And no, none for me. Town administrative reports.
All right, gentlemen, just have a few things, some are just advisements and announcements and a couple of actionable items. One, a while back, one of the had mentioned about the audit, just to let you know, the audit, the 2021 audit came March 28th. One of the other bits of information I got today is the water department. Want to let you know that Tom Kowski from the water department passed the CDLA on Friday.
Oh, good.
Received that.
Brian,
Yes.
can you flip up your
Oh,
mic?
I'm sorry. Yeah, is that better?
Chairman, just going back, is that a full-fledged CDLA or limit restricted with CDLA?
My understanding was it was full flip, but it maybe have an automatic restriction?
Doesn't have any
No,
restrictions.
no restrictions. Okay, no
Okay,
restrictions.
so it's a tractor trailer, CDL, everything.
Mhm, yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's good.
Good.
So also in, I believe you guys received, so last week I had polled the board and I just want to get an official vote. I had polled the board about a events for the Special Olympics at Winnie Dip. I called the board members and they were all in favor of holding the event. The reason it didn't make it onto the agenda because they were having a hard time getting the insurance certificate. It was received midweek, but the event was scheduled to be held that weekend. That's why I polled the board. So my request to you is just based on the Special Olympics Winnie Dip application that was in front of you and what we had talked about. Can we take a public vote on that so that the public knows?
Do we have a motion to accept the special event application Winnie Dip?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. One of the other things I wanted to ask for the board, based on conversations with board members in the past, is just poll the board to find out whether or not you do want me, the administrative officer, to order signature stamps for you folks moving forward. Or if you want to sign by hand, continuing forward. I know there was a little bit of a discussion about that.
You're gonna have, to me, if you're gonna have 50 abatements going out, it would be nice to have that because sometimes there's 2 signatures required on that.
Yes.
I myself personally will.
Would like one?
Yeah. May as
If I
well.
have to pay for it myself, I'd be more than glad to
Be a
pay for
little
my own.
easier.
Okay.
Yep.
Nope, that's fine. I will get that in the works and let you guys folks know.
Do you need signatures or can you get away with just initials?
I believe it's a full signature stamp.
Signature?
And also, we don't utilize those stamps on obviously legal documents that require ink stamps. We check that ahead of time beforehand. For any of that stuff too. All right. One of the other things is I have a request for a small addendum to the personnel book manual based on the reclassifications that have been done. The finance director pointed out to me that one part of the probationary statute in the new handbook doesn't allow for any increasements, any adjustments, anything for any probationary employees. But a lot of the reclassifications we've been doing were for entry-level positions with people coming in. So in some cases, you may have a hiree that it was hired a month ago or 2 months ago. Then you have a new truck driver that comes in the highway and they're making more money than the guy who's been there for 2 months because we can't reclassify them with the classification. It's more of a housekeeping item because it's in contradiction. The policy says no adjustments, but the board obviously has the ultimate authority. So the language change is just to add under the probation thing is that, probationary employee won't be entitled to raises or increases merit, except with the exception of reclassification with governing board approval. And that's just so that if the board takes action and there's a question with that, the policy allows for it and coincides with the board's decisions and actions.
You need to vote on
Yes.
that, right?
Yes.
Makes sense.
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to insert on 4.16 probation clause. Third sentence up, where it says probation if the employee was on probation when other across the board increase or issue, with the exception of reclassification with the governing body approval. Department head and the consultation with the town administrator and the approving governing body may terminate the employee without notice. Have it inserted there.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the insurance company asked, our new health insurance company sent out a memo for Cobra. Anybody who's on Cobra, the Cobra plan from the town, they're asking for the Board of Selectmen to find out whether or not they want to assess a fee for them to use the HRA policy. They said typically the boards or towns have been setting like a $20 or $30 fee for, I think it's more the admin costs associated with managing it and things of that nature, because the Cobras are for retirees or people leaving service of the town and pulling Cobra. So they just wanted to know whether or not the board wanted to assess a fee to that, or you also have the option not to assess any fee.
We need a vote on that or general consensus?
I think we need to vote on that because they're going to put it in, they're going to attach it to a policy.
So I'd like to go back, if we could, Mr. Chairman, to town administrator. Cobra is basically there for 12 months. Anybody that leaves services of the town, correct?
Yes.
If they're fired from the town, they're still allowed to collect Cobra, correct?
Mhm.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I have no problems assessing a fee if an individual was fired, but if they retired or they moved on to another job to better themselves, I have no problem not charging people. If they were fired for disciplinary reasons, then there should be an admin fee. But I don't know if that would be legal.
I would have to ask that.
Would have to find that out.
I will say that the finance director had mentioned to me that the amount of times that this is actually applied or is in finance is next to nothing. So, I mean, it's not like there would be, if we decided to assess the fee across the board or is no fee across the board, we wouldn't be looking at encountering this.
I feel that we shouldn't, especially anybody that retires after 20, 22 years, 30 years, we should not assess them for a Cobra fee and while they're waiting to get their retirement.
Sure.
No, I agree with that too.
I guess this Chair, make a motion, charge no fee at this time.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. This item is, so I was contacted by, wetland scientists down in the bay. There was a couple of wetlands issues down in the bay, not issues, but wetland scientists doing stuff for the town that commingled into stuff for Shibley's. So I got contacted by both. One was Kelly had met with the wetlands people that were doing the wetlands permit for the retaining wall. It's the same permit for the work of the retaining wall. We had to renew it. We had to update it. It had expired. So they're down there completing that. The only thing she needed to know is that the owner of the property needs to be able to sign the application for the state. So my question for the board is to have the board's authorization to sign on behalf of the town to submit the wetland application, to sign on behalf as the owner of the property. I mean, unless the board wants to go through and sign the whole application, but it made more sense that there's a bunch of initial plots and stuff like that, that it's the same application. It's when there's nothing different in it.
Is this the application for the tenant or is this an application for the town?
It's an application for the town for the retaining wall work.
Okay.
Behind the public docks.
Yep. Nope,
Yeah.
not a problem.
Okay. So if the board's okay with that, with authorizing me to be the signature on that particular document.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign on behalf of the wetlands permit for the retaining wall in the bay.
Second?
Okay. The second one, the surface, right? Oh, I'm sorry. You guys didn't call for a vote yet.
A second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second wetlands issue that popped up that they called right afterwards on was the same situation as far as signing on behalf of the town for town property. The difference with this one is the applicant is Shibley's. And I believe this was a part of a project that had originally been talked about is they're doing the repair needed to the docks outside. They're not expanding anything, they're not changing anything, they're just fixing and repairing it, what's in place. But again, the application going in, they were getting ready to submit it before the wetland scientists realized that that was leasehold property and not physically owned by them. So a signature from the town would need to sign off on that to allow them to fix those docks at their own expense. We would only be authorizing them to move forward with their permit. So is that something the board would?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to allow the town administrator to sign the wetlands permit for the lease property for the Shibleys at no expense to the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I was also notified today, just as a heads up with the summer water lines coming online, that Butler's Drive has water line damage due to some work that was being done in the area through the winter. The water superintendent already notified me via email. She'd already been in contact with the homeowner and the contractors who seem to be assuming responsibility. She'll be working with them to rectify the issue at their cost. And we'll get further information, but if there's any delays with the water in that area, the board members start to hear about it. I figured I would give you the heads up sooner than later.
That'll be time and material.
What's that?
That'll be time and material.
Yes.
What road is that again?
Butler Drive. One of the things that need to see if the board wants to move forward with. So if you remember a while back, we had a meeting, the board of selectmen had a meeting with myself as police chief, residents on 28A and the S curves between the public restrooms and like Dan Kelly Drive about reducing the speed limit, and the DOT was there. So we utilized the new tracking system the Public Works had purchased. We set it out there. We got the data collected and sent it to DOT. Finally we got a response back from DOT. The data that was collected wasn't favorable enough to them for them to warrant a permanent speed limit change. So we had a meeting, myself, the Public Works Director, And actually, the police chief had walked in while we were having the meeting too as well and sat in with us. And we were just following up on DOT's reply to that data. So really right now, the only immediate action that we can take, and the residents are in favor of moving forward with it as well, is DOT recommended a seasonal speed limit. We can do a seasonal 25-mile-an-hour. We also talked, the police chief recommended maybe putting an additional sign underneath the 25-mile-an-hour, just a little sign that says strictly enforced. Give them a little bit more enforcement action that they can take for marginal speeds above 25 in that area. Also, he was aware and talking about added enforcement directed patrols along with this seasonal speed limit to see if that really is going to help curb this, that heavy seasonal traffic issue that we're having. The only other issue that the only other advisement that DOT had put up was putting fixed mounted devices like those knockdown sticks on the fog lines and things like that. And both myself and the public works director and the police chief said, it's just too tight in there. You'll be slapping mirrors and all sorts of issues if you start crowding the center line. So really the seasonal speed limit is the way to go. And really I'm just asking the board's permission to go ahead and apply. It's kind of time sensitive because for the seasonal, they wanted us to get the information in March. So
I would
just
say yes.
to draft a
Yeah.
letter and request that, I have to request it.
I would say definitely.
I'd agree with it because Guilford does it now from Hoyer restaurant up to the town line.
Mhm.
They reduce it there, just seasonal.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to have the town administrator follow up with DOT for seasonal speed limit on 28A from the entrance of 28A off of Route 11 to Dan Kelly Drive.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the last thing I needed to mention for the board to discuss is, you had mentioned discussing the whole issue of road concerns, Stockbridge Corner, Powder Mill, Crossroads, weight limits. We had that petition that had come forward. And the board had some discussion and we agreed that I believe the consensus of the board was to wait until the new board came in and discuss how you wanted to handle moving forward with that. It's up to the board how you want to proceed. I just typically a public hearing is usually on a specific action that the board's looking to take. I would say my recommendation to the board would be put it as an agenda item and publicize it and allow whoever wants to come in to talk about road concerns or road issues to be able to be part of the discussion. It's just, like I said, a public hearing usually specifies what the board's going to take for an action. And if it's just, we're just opening it up for discussion and for the board to take it in.
Okay.
That's just, my recommendation, but you guys do what you feel.
Actually, we're not recommending anything at this time on any of those roads. We had our 2 public hearings. Not to only address one road. I have no problem with them making an appointment to come in and talk to us
Okay.
about any of their road issues.
Andrew?
Yeah, so the purpose of them coming is just to listen to them.
Yes.
Because the board made a decision on it after the 2 meetings. So we'd just be listening.
So to get public input.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it.
I think it should be a work session with that, the only thing being on the agenda. No action has to be taken in a work session. No other business can be conducted. Other business can be conducted at a work session, but that would be the primary goal. Bob's right. We only took issue on one road. We actually took issues on 2 roads. The second road was never brought back up. The spur from Main Street to the top of Old Wolfboro Hill Road. We were going to limit that traffic. I believe that if we could have the town administrator go back and look in the minutes, just so we can finish
Just
that.
to clarify that.
Okay.
Because it was Bay Hill Roads and it was just that short spur, no tractor trailers
Right.
down that hill.
Yeah.
I believe, but we hadn't finished with the public hearing because it was 2 different roads.
Right.
But I would like to see a work session.
People come in and hear what they have to say.
And have it an open session agenda just for that.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I agree with that too. So do we have a motion?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, have the town administrator on our off weeks have a work session to all concerned taxpayers, town of Alton, on town roads.
Do we have a second?
And actually, I'd like to put one more thing in there, and sidewalks.
Okay, and sidewalks. Do we have a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is that it?
That's all set.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. January 25th, 2022, non-public.
Yeah, make a motion, to approve January 25th, 2022, non-public session minutes.
We have a second? Second. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I need to go back and redo my motion on that because I didn't say to divulge or not divulge.
Oh, go ahead.
Second page.
Mhm.
Going to make a motion to approve the non-public session minutes of January 25th, 2022. And not releasing 1, 2, or 3 at this point until the other minutes are approved on public.
Do we have a second? I'll second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. February 7th, 2022, non-public session.
Mr. Chairman, just, Selectman Morse, just for these minutes that you're not here, you just would have to abstain from them.
Okay.
Just because you weren't present. during
Yeah,
that.
just say abstain.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Abstain.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
I'd like to have these minutes taken back in the non-public session.
These minutes.
I have a problem with what was given to me 2 weeks ago, what was presented to me tonight,
For February 7th.
February 7th. Yes, sir.
Is that a motion? Or?
Is that your motion to,
I would like to have them table until non-public session. I don't feel it has to be a motion unless somebody wants to make a motion to approve them.
do we have a second to table, February 7th, non-public? Do we have a second to table?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
The March 7th, 2022, public session. I'd like to, let me double check this. To amend an error. The end of the last page on the non-public session. Mr. McDonald was not present that evening, and it says he was chairman. This is,
What minutes are you on?
this
sir?
is March 7th,
Okay.
2022, public session.
Mine says
Can we go
Paul-
back to February 14th, non-public session minutes though first, sir?
I'm sorry.
You missed.
Oh, I missed one, didn't I?
Yep.
What, February 14th? Sorry. Sorry, gentlemen. February 14th, 2022, non-public session.
I'm going to make a motion to approve February 14th, 2022, non-public session. Divulging item 1. Item 2. And not divulging item 3.
You have a second?
Uh, What about 4? Are you
The fourth.
press release? I think you
Number
released
4,
that.
sorry. And release number 4.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, sorry, guys. March 7th, 2022, public session.
I'm sorry, what was your motion, sir?
My motion was to amend in the minutes at the very end, where it goes into the non-public session. It says at 8:30 PM, Chair McDonald convened the non-public session. He was not present.
That's right. So it should have been you.
No, should have been, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And March 7th, 2022, non-public session, same thing. This is at the beginning, at 8:30 PM. Chair McDonald convened non-public session, and again, he was not present. Would have been
So
Vice Chair, Ms. Laura Shaw.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve March 7th, 2022 non-public session is divulging. 1, because I believe we can,
yes.
and number 2.
Second.
All in favor? Consent agenda.
We'll make a motion to approve this consent agenda, March 21st, 2022, item 1, water department. Number 2, assessing department, land use items approval.
Get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, this time I'd like to make a motion to move up the committee assignments for the selectmen before we go to public input and also non-public.
Get a second? All in favor? Aye. Board reorganization.
Chairman?
Yes.
To make a motion. Chairman and vice chairman.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Rock Mitchell as chairman and Paul LaRochelle as vice chairman.
I second that.
Anyone else? Anything?
Call the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion fails?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you call for the motion yet.
Yes.
I heard you had a first. I didn't hear.
A first and a second.
Oh, first, I didn't hear you call for the motion. I'm sorry.
I didn't
Must have been
either.
reading something else.
Yeah, I didn't hear him call for a motion.
I didn't hear you call for the vote. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't. I apologize. I got confused. Okay, do we, all in favor?
Aye.
No.
Post.
Okay, number 2.
Budget committee.
Yep, budget committee.
Chairman, I'll be more than glad to take the budget committee my last year.
Okay. Okay. Capital improvement.
We
We need just an
have a
alternate,
backup.
an alternate on budget.
An alternate also for the budget committee.
I was gonna say I'd be willing
Or
to do
Andrew
that.
can do it. Yeah, that'll.
You
Okay,
could-
Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, capital improvement program.
When do they meet?
I honestly, I don't know which day of the month it is, but they're meeting more regular. It used to be a seasonal thing, but now they've stepped it up to meet because now they have, I believe there's a branch off of the facilities committee that the board had established as well.
I guess I'll
Andy?
be the new
Okay,
guy.
Conservation Commission.
I'll do it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Cyanobacteria Mitigation Steering Committee.
Chairman, the only reason I say it's kind of a non-existent at this point, since I have not heard of any meetings
No.
throughout the whole season since Fred Quimby got done from
Right.
illness. Nobody's really taken the lead on that from either community. I would stay on it if I know somewhere along the time the committee's going to get back together, but I have not heard from the other town.
The only thing I've heard from, and I think, if I could just inquire to make sure I'm correct, Fred Quimby, isn't he the one that we were supposed to meet with on that grant? He was supposed to help the town with that. Isn't that a grant related to this? To Cenovus? Watershed plan. So we have been in communication with him because he offered to help. So there's something spurring as far as a grant is concerned. But I can keep you further posted on that because they've asked myself and the Public Works Director to be involved in that.
Okay. Move on then to Facility Committee.
I can do that. I don't, when do they meet?
Facilities Committee. I don't know if they have a schedule established yet, a full schedule. Are you? Okay.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do alternate. Mhm. House hazardous waste.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Master Plan Committee. I will.
Done.
We're doing good.
I'll do the alternate on that.
Okay. Milfoil Committee.
Yeah, I'll do that one. I'll keep that one.
Old Home Week Committee.
Yeah, I'll keep that one. If it's all right.
Mm-hmm. Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You keep that one,
Try
Rob?
to make,
Planning Board.
I'll do that. I've never done that, so be a little bit of something for me.
Oh, I can be the alternate if you want, unless Ruben, you want that?
No, sir.
So it's Brock and Bob.
Yeah.
Water Bandstand Committee.
We'll keep that.
Yeah, I wasn't going to, but
Oh,
yeah.
Paul, if you want to give that up, I'll take that one on. You talked about giving it up because you wanted to stay with the zoning ordinance committee and the
Yes.
zoning board of
Yes.
adjustment. I'll take that one up for you.
Okay, thank you. Zoning and Ordinance Committee, I'll take that. You want to stay the alternate? And Zoning Board of Adjustment, ZBA, I'll stay on that. That's all right with you guys? And I think we have it. I think at this point, it's appropriate to turn it over to the new chairman.
Probably continue out the meeting this way. In the past, I don't know whether,
Just
I don't think it's a problem closing the meeting out
Okay.
the way that we started.
fine. Okay.
Public input.
Yes, public input for 5 minutes. Anyone?
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Valerie Tarbell, and I've actually been part of Alton for about 35 years as a seasonal resident on Rattlesnake. And our goal was to move here when we retired, which we did October 20th, 2020. And at that time, we moved on Laura Lane, and we were the fourth house out of the 5 properties that are in that cul-de-sac. In doing so, we had learned that from realtors and from the neighbors that once a third house went in, it would have been brought to the town for the road to be picked up and looked at for town approval. Nothing happened. We then moved in, and when the neighbors started talking, we decided that we had to move it forward. As to letters, we had been in contact with the people that owned the road, the Scribners. We had had supervisors of the highway department on Cherry Valley come up and look at our road and indicate that there's no reason that road is in better condition than a lot of roads. It has been established for 15 years. At that time, it should have been picked up. It did not, because they did not have the number of houses on it that were supposedly required for it. That's not the fault of the new neighbors that are up there now, or the last couple of us that have moved in. You mentioned a letter to selectmen. I have 2 drafts, one in September 24th of 2021 and October 5th of 21, in which all of you that were on the board at that time were mentioned and were going to get a letter from us. Both times we decided to pause because we kept finding different processes in what we had to do in order to help get that road facilitated in the future. I looked them up on my phone today. I have a draft. I have another draft. So the reason you didn't get a letter earlier than this and not 6 months ago was we waited to see what the process was. What were we doing? How does it get it? How do we make it? We did go to the planning board because that was part of the process. At that time, the planning board said, after following everything, and Scott did a great job representing that, and he has seen our road the few times and talked with the neighbors, that it was being sent to you and this is when we all left the meeting that day and all the neighbors were here, to approve that plan based on a possible escrow for that asphalt being done. So we all left here thinking, okay, that's the thing. Well, then that was back, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And we're just now coming up, and I wasn't planning to come, but I said, I think I'm going to come tonight just as an in case. We pay taxes. You mentioned, oh, the cost of the road. I've paid taxes here on an island. What services do I get? I also pay now for my road. The neighbor, there's 4 of us that are paying. Why should we not? We're paying, why shouldn't we have the benefits of having a public road that meets specs? Okay. And as for the people that reside there, we're all over 65. I also know that the town of Alton, the bus drivers earlier this year were using the private road, because it's not picked up yet, as a turnaround, because it's a great cul-de-sac for a bus and a fire truck to make that circle up there and come back down without having to go into the Guilford Reed Road circle. So there's a lot of reasons that road being made public. Have the repairs been made? Yes. Has that asphalt coating been made? No, but it's there. The money was set aside in an escrow for it to be done. We, all 4 neighbors, have been in contact consistently since like a year ago. We've talked to a lawyer. They suggested, and we haven't done it again. That's why we put the letter to give the letter to you guys, thinking that you guys would then help us put it through. So we're at a standstill now, feeling like, okay, it's been, seen by the old one, seen by the new highway person. A state person has looked at it and said all the repairs have been made, and now we're going to another, it feels like delays. Okay, legal, do we have an attorney right now hired that this can go to when you mentioned legal looking at it?
But ma'am, our town attorney, our town council, the policy for the selectmen have always been for the town selectmen to have our town attorney look at it. Doesn't cost you folks anything. It's just for us to have them review it to make sure everything's done right. They're satisfied the way things should be done. Once that's approved by our town attorney, then we set up to notify you all folks that we will be holding a public hearing for a road acceptance. It's not stalling. It's just the proper channels to go.
Okay.
Okay. And I've seen it before. Last year, the one road we did, it came to us, I believe, in the wintertime. We never accepted it until the spring, until we could actually see the road. Like you said, the public works director went out on it. So there should be no problem. The money is there for the chip seal and escrow. We just have to, you have that paperwork there. The town attorney will just look at all the paperwork, make sure everything's there that's required by the town.
Do we have that town attorney hired right now, or are we still in limbo?
We are just using one as we need them right now. The town has not hired a new town attorney since the last one resigned.
So if I report back to the neighbors that we are waiting for the town attorney to look at, but what about all these other people that need to sign off on it?
That shouldn't take them any more than a week. The public works director basically has signed off it verbally almost tonight. The fire chief just got to look at it for his fire equipment, which is saying the school bus and the fire like it because they make that white cul-de-sac.
The department head review is an email process with me.
Okay,
So that I bring back to the board. So
Okay.
that's not going to take any time. And the attorney that we're utilizing is readily available. So
Okay.
I can package this up this week. It's not like it's going to take a month to get it out to them or anything
Okay.
like that.
because I do know that like some of the neighbors, have been concerned, like where we had, the person was doing it this year, plowing one lane, and if a fire truck did have to get up there or whatever, because it's a regular street and you can easily go 2 lanes and then turn, and yet it's too big for like little guys to do. And so that's why I said the letters, I have the drafts, the taxes, the representation of all the neighbors, I'm here. And as far as, I guess all I'm asking for is that you give it serious consideration and hopefully,
There should be no reason why it isn't accepted, but we
Okay.
just have to go through those processes.
It's
Okay.
just that
stages.
you
Well-
are at the final stages and it won't take long from here.
I also want to say that for people coming in, it seemed like, and again, I don't know if there's procedures written that if a person that lives on a road or wants to develop a road, is there something written that they can look at and say, okay, these are the steps for it? Because as I
The
said,
planning department.
the planning, well, it just seemed like when we go to them and they kicked it to you guys and it was like, we were getting different answers from different people. So the consistency of communication regarding this road and the process of getting it approved, we kind of sit there and going, well, what is it?
Is this, I just want to clarify, is this the particular situation? I believe that the original approval went to an individual that's now since passed away. Because normally when a subdivision is approved through the planning board, the process of building the infrastructure and going up through is done through the contractor and the developer of the subdivision. But I believe this developer in question had passed away before it was completed.
I'm not
And it was
sure.
taken
no,
over?
Because isn't his wife
Yeah, the
still?
wife- the wife,
The
yeah,
wife
but-
is in charge right
But
now.
normally the neighborhood petitions, I know when Southview Lane was taken over by the town, all the neighbors petitioned the Board of Selectmen to take it over. Selectmen reviewed the minutes with the planning board signed off, and each department head after that signed off. And that was, I want to say roughly 20 years ago, because I used to plow it.
Okay,
It's just like your road. I used to plow it, but I remember being a selectman when that came to tuition because they meant the density requirements of the number of lots that were built upon.
so if I had sent my 2 letters back in September, I have speeded this process up, I guess is what I'm saying.
Possibly, but normally, usually the selectmen do not approve a road during the wintertime because not all things can be seen.
True.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I think we're over
Yeah,
our
point of
5
order.
minutes.
We're well,
No
way over our
offense.
5
Okay.
minutes. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just,
Hopefully this helped you.
no, thanks for listening, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Good evening.
John Markland. I had a few items to discuss tonight, but it's 8:37. So I scratched a couple off. I'll just address one issue, if that's all right with the board. Wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Selectman Morse and Selectman La Rochelle,
Thank you very much.
the recent win in our town election. I'd also like to congratulate the town administrator for getting the Board of Selectmen, majority anyways, to approve his contract. After reading the town administrator's contract, I had to flip back to the first page, see if this was a contract for the Alton's town administrator, or did the New England Patriots just re-sign Tom Brady? I commend Town Administrator Heath, convinced the majority of the board to agree on a contract that has so many lucrative benefits, better pay, 3.5% merit, 4% increases every year, protection from discharge or termination unless for just cause, continual pay into his state retirement through his law enforcement career, although that just changed, which I believe is a change in the terms and conditions of the contract. An additional retirement plan set up by the town, schooling, and most importantly, a contract that has no end date or period of time for review. Amazing, considering most projects in town that we contract with have 3 to 5 year limitations, so that we can reevaluate and do what's best in the town's interest. But in a 3-2 vote on January 25th, this contract was approved, which raised the questions. How can a sitting member of this board at the time the vote was taken vote in favor of this contract when he had a pecuniary interest outside of his role as selectman? It is well known that a former sitting member of this board was involved in a private business relationship with the candidate seeking the town administrator's job. According to the Town of Alton Conflict of Interest Ordinance adopted in 1998, Article 2 states, and I quote, "No town official shall act in an official capacity in an attempt to influence any other town official or take part in any discussion or vote which either directly or indirectly promotes or obtains a pecuniary interest for themselves, a family member, or business associate, except when the pecuniary interest is to benefit the general public. Any town official to whom this article applies shall publicly disclose any defined interest and disqualify themselves from acting on the matter," end quote. This former board member did not do this, and his vote became the determining vote to approve the contract. The same board member was a representative on the planning board and was confronted around the same time as this contract regarding his participation on a project before the planning board and his vested interest in that project. Planning board decided that he should not have voted on the project, and they took corrective measures at the next meeting to rescind the previous vote. This same action should be done by this board on this issue. I'd also be interested in knowing what recommendations town council gave regarding this contract. I'm asking the board for their consideration of releasing information given by town council to the board regarding this contract. If this request is denied, I'd ask why. Is there something to hide? Is there a reason town council resigned immediately after the board approved this contract? If the board does decide to take corrective action regarding this blatant conflict, it'd be my hope that you review the contract once again with town council, once you find one. I'd also inquire whether the board is allowed to enter into a new multi-year non-lapsing contract without town approval. I believe these issues need to be resolved in a transparent manner. People are talking and they have a right to know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Do we have anyone else?
It's an act to follow.
Lauren Carr, I got a question on the #1 Conservation Commission, the non-stack precipice support. You approved the money, correct? The 37,000, and then you want to have the Conservation Committee have public input after? that doesn't mean much. Public input doesn't seem to matter much then. If 50 people come in and say, we don't want it, it does, you've already approved the money, right?
Trying to recall if
Yes.
Yeah.
we did.
So shouldn't you have public input and then make a decision afterwards instead of just having people come in and just talk and you don't care? So it just seemed kind of strange. And the other thing about the Conservation Commission, if I remember correctly, they're appointed by the board. They're not voted in. And the selectmen control the purse strings. So why is the conservation having a public input when it's you people who control the purse strings? And they're appointed board and actually work for you people. So shouldn't you people be the ones that hearing the public input before you give out the money for projects? Well, just a question. We had I had a meeting today. Ryan was in with the trustees of trust funds, and I think it was a great meeting. A lot of discussion about the capital reserves, reserves funds, and what their role plays in releasing those funds. And, you know, I've talked about this before, how the board voted or okayed some of the reserve funds, even though the reserve funds didn't cover that issue. And I think we made some headway, or I think the trustees and I think Ryan made a lot of headway of how this information is now going to go to the trustees of the trust funds. Because there seems to be a disconnect of this checks and balances that body has with the selectmen. So probably Ryan can fill you in next meeting or whatever about that, what he suggested. And I also brought up the thing about the CIP recommendations at the end of the warrant articles. Have you heard anything about that? No?
No, yes,
Yes.
you're talking about, they're talking
Yes,
about the
we
Attorney
have.
General letter. They
Yes.
just released from, yes, they're.
Because there seemed to be confusing last time. One of the members of the public thought that, you know, the attorney said it can't be the planning board. And, you know, and I said, well, follow suit at the CIP recommendations. So I take it then they won't have any CIP recommendations anymore because that's not a legal standard.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly Sullivan. I just want to thank everybody again for being here. Welcome, maybe. Wow, what a night. Okay, so I'm all good tonight, with one exception. My first two really good things were about the Conservation Commission. Most of you know, some of you that are not aware, I did the community profile in 2018, All In for Alton, which was basically in essence what the master plan committee is doing now, which I also sit on. Top three takeaways from the All In for Alton and the master plan committee surveys were an easy access for all information. And one of the top ones also was the connectivity of trails and green space in town. And I think if we were able to somehow come about these parcels, I appreciate the Conservation Committee working hard on that. I was concerned about the parking. I was happy that Mr. Holt brought that up over by Knight's Pond, that seemed to be taken care of. And as long as the road works out down in Jesus Valley, I think that would be fantastic for the town. And it was one of the top three takeaways out of the last 5 years of surveys done through the town of the town's people. So I commend the town for doing that. I might not always agree with Mr. Carr. I appreciate that he comes. I myself started coming because of stuff that happened a couple of years ago that I didn't appreciate. I try to be very open-minded about anything I look at. So while I might not always agree with him, I appreciate where he comes from. I also appreciate Mr. Markland bringing up the hard topics because that stuff does need to be addressed and it is being discussed. Again, thank you for serving.
Thank you very much.
Can I talk in public session
I don't,
on that over there? I don't know. Never done it,
I
but
don't know if you can or not.
I won't.
Unless you would recuse yourself for the rest of the meeting, that would be different.
No, that's fine.
Any other input?
Talk later.
Okay. On that, I obtain a motion to enter into non-public meeting for RSA 91-A:3, 11 or 2, 11.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
hold the board, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Aye. Aye. Aye.
aye.
I need
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to take a 10-minute recess, please.
All in favor? Recess?
10 minutes.